Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here for what I think is going to be a delightfully peculiar conversation. In fact, if Patricia Lockwood's new novel had a soundtrack, and I sure hope it does, I think it might sound like this. Hit it. Anybody know that song? What? You guys knew it? Do you know the name of it? Two Heads. Two Heads. Isn't that delightfully weird? It's groovy. I love it. I could listen to that all night. Patricia Lockwood's novel describes a wild and, I gotta say, pretty psychedelic experience of contracting COVID and feeling like she was living in a different world. She writes, "It stole people from themselves. You might look the same to others, but you had been replaced." Patricia Lockwood's new novel is titled, "Will There Ever Be Another You?" Please give her a warm welcome to the Talking Volumes stage. Good to see you. What did you think of my two heads?
I thought it was really good.
Did you think it was groovy?
I was really proud of the person who got it. Yeah, I was. I was like, I know.
Okay, I know you listened to music. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But is there a soundtrack for the novel?
Absolutely.
Oh, do tell.
Yes. So for a long time, I couldn't listen to music. It's sort of like people who get a concussion, and it just sounds like jangling noises, right? But
you mean that was during COVID? You
yes,
could not.
Right. So after I was ill, I couldn't listen to music, and I was just like, that's noise. It's like your parents being like, rock music, that's noise. That's how it sounded. So a while in, I think around 2021, my friend sent me some mushrooms in the mail, some magic mushrooms, some psychedelic mushrooms.
Ah.
Yes. And I made tea out of it. And I drank it, and I got really, really into the music of Can and other krautrock artists. They asked me to make a little playlist for the book, yeah. And I put a bunch of those songs on there. And I put like some Perfume Genius. I put like Jason on there. That's the name of my husband. There's some songs that come up in the course of the book, like What Is Love, Baby Don't Hurt Me,
oh my
things
gosh.
Like that. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that.
We're going to talk about
In fact, let's talk about it now.
Okay.
This and once I read that and I went online to look at it because there's a couple different versions. It was in my head endlessly and I could not get rid of it.
Exactly.
It is such an earworm kind of song.
Earworm. Yeah.
Why did that get locked into your head?
I have no idea. It was a mystery. So this was sort of in the period where it was quite severe. And I was just kind of walking the floorboards of my house. I was scared of my floors because I thought they were going to give way. And it was just this endless loop. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. But it became kind of poignant, right? It's kind of like context free. That's a really poignant line, right? I'm stuck in a house. It's like lockdown. I'm stuck in my house with my husband. And it's just like, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. It just rang over and over and over again. It started to seem really profound after a time. Maybe it is profound. Dance music, club music can be very profound.
Is it the original version or the dance club
Girl, I
version?
don't know. You think I know
there are
the answer
two.
to that? No, it was the clubbiest possible. The way it was happening in here was very clubby.
All right, there's the Hadaway version, Patricia.
I think it's the Hadaway, yeah.
But then there's the dance club version from 2023, which is like these three people, and it's kind of wild. And
it was the original, yeah. Only the classics for my insanity. Yes, that's what chose me.
Tell me about this, the floorboards giving way kind of sensation.
I think I was just dizzy, and I didn't know what that was. There were many things that later I was like, oh, that was a headache, or I was dizzy, or I was too hot, or I developed an allergy to shrimp. And that later you were like, of course. But at the time, you had absolutely no idea. I said that it was like being in the garden of perception, and that's what it was. It was like looking around and just having to figure out what these sensations were.
So in the moment, well, it felt pretty psychedelic, and it felt mysterious.
Yes.
And it felt inexplicable in some ways?
It did, yes, but I was still trying to interpret it. I remained a writer.
Yeah.
That's the interesting part.
Say something about that, because
Yes.
that's wild.
I got to the end of it, and I really thought, I was editing it, and I was like, it's really kind of brave. I was thinking about the narrator. I was thinking about, her as a third-person figure, and I was like, what was she doing? What was she trying to see? What was she trying to understand or interpret? Why was she trying to put experience together into a narrative?
Yeah.
Because that's what she had always done, right?
Meaning?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was before. And it's what I kept doing, even in times of crisis, even in times of illness, even in times that I felt that I had been replaced. I was writing it all down. I had my notebooks. I was busting it all out every single day.
I'm sure you've been asked why this isn't a memoir. Have you?
I have been asked that question. Yes, and I think it's because my answer generally is that fiction gives you freedom. Just calling something fiction gives you freedom to put things in that you might not otherwise put in. There's a kind of scrupulosity to writing a memoir, certainly to writing a memoir like Priest Daddy, which is about being the child of a Catholic priest, so that'll be a scrupulous one. But you're like, I gotta make sure it's true. I'm in confession right now, and the priest is gonna know if I get anything and it's not exactly true. And if you tell yourself that it's fiction, there's suddenly this freedom or this latitude that opens up, and you think, I can put in those weird things that I might not have thought about putting in otherwise.
So fiction gave you license to even embroider on the weirdest of the experiences? I can't imagine you had to.
No, I really didn't. So what I did was I just put in all of the perceptions and sensations were true. And some of the narrative framing, some of the characters, some of the through lines, things like that were more fictional. But I thought if I can just describe what she's feeling and what she's seeing, if she's seeing gorillas in the trees, that sort of thing, then people will understand what she's talking about, right? You can put it together brick by brick, sort of.
The novel opens with the central character contracting COVID on a family trip to Scotland after a tragedy has occurred. And the experience of being a stranger in a strange land really intensifies. There was a reason that you constructed this scenario for her. Why?
Because I think that it might have started even before I was ill, that I felt not like myself. So
now we're talking about you in real life.
Me personally, yes.
Okay.
And so I was drawing sort of the protagonist of No One Is Talking About This, again, quite close to my real life.
Yeah.
There's sort of like a continuation in the first chapter from the end of that book. I think that that's very true. But Fairy Pools, the first chapter was only written about halfway through. I had to get a little bit better before I could write an actual travel narrative. That was not going to be possible at the beginning.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, side note, I'm curious if you've had this experience. I've gotten twice very sick on an international trip, not COVID.
Yeah.
And when I think of those trips, my experience of what we did and where we went and is inextricably linked with the experience of being sick. There's something euphoric when you pull out of it too.
Yes.
You're still on the trip.
Yes.
Have you had this?
It was already so dislocating for me always to travel, right? To even change time zones. I'm one of those people who's like weeping on a plane while listening to Gordon Lightfoot for some reason. Like, I'm not good at traveling. So I get to another country and I'm basically...
coming back to that.
I know,
Go
I'm
ahead.
like, sundown, you better take care. And I'm just like, it's so beautiful, the back door, whatever it means. So I'm already not a good traveler. And you get over there and you have a bad clam or something, or you get COVID and you're puking arugula into the hotel toilet. And you're kind of just like, this is fine. This is part of it. Like, it's not that much different, right? But after we had COVID, I experienced a total wave of euphoria. Yes, it was like, we got it. We didn't die. We lived. It was like that. It was very much, I lived, bitch, right? Like,
Patricia, wait, you just said after we had COVID.
Oh, my husband as well, yeah. You don't like my use of all pronouns at the same time, and I just choose a different one at any given moment.
Is it the character and you? Is it you?
Yeah,
Is it
you're
you and
free
your
to ask
husband?
that sort of thing. I've never been very I've never drawn a veil over that sort of thing when I'm being interviewed. If someone wants to ask me if something is true, usually I'm like, yeah, That was true. Or no, I made that part up. Or I changed this guy's name. Or his butt was bigger than that. I am very forthcoming about things. So if you want to know, it's all you, baby. I will tell you. I'm going to tell you.
I don't. Those kinds of things I don't need to know. I'm
Yeah.
just.
Okay. The butt
Are
one?
we? Big
butt.
butts. No. Are we in the novel, or are we in Patricia's life, or is it permeable?
I think it's very permeable. So in the first chapter, she says, there are these strange feelings she had where sometimes she woke as she, and then she was she, and then some mornings she woke as I, and then she was I. And I really felt that way. I was the sort of person my whole life, I think, who was not too attached to my own name, who was maybe a little bit of a person who floated around the edges of things, a little bit depersonalized. Yeah. No, go.
What does that feel like? I don't understand that.
It feels like you are a ghost, and it is your job to pass through walls and write things down that other people don't see. So if you, from a very early age, are a witness, or you kind of stand in the corners and watch the adults and you try to figure out why people behave the way they do, you're already functioning in the world a little bit as a ghost, right? And I think it was just very intensified when I was ill. And then the fact that I continued to write throughout, that was an intensification too.
Do you have that? Do you have kind of a sense of invisibility when you're most in that place of observation, ghost-like?
That's a really good question, and I think maybe, yes. Maybe it's not that I felt invisible in the first place, but that I did it to become invisible, right? To become that sort of watcher. No one's paying attention to you when you're watching, and you're quiet, and you're writing things down. You're in charge then, right? You're in charge of what goes down on the paper. You're in charge of how the story is told. You're in charge of the narrative.
What I wonder about that is whether you're really invisible, or whether you feel like you've pulled the cloak of invisibility
Maybe.
about you, but people are seeing
I don't know
what you're doing.
I don't know. It was definitely a thing in my family home that there were some big personalities, some big showy people. You might notice I have a little bit of it, but not as much as some. And it was all about them. Like if my dad walked in a room, that was the show. He was not paying attention to you. You could pay attention to him and not be seen, and it felt very safe to be doing that. Yeah, that was the safest thing to be doing.
That was the show. I don't know. Performers can be pretty good observers.
Yeah, I think that's true.
You think he was unaware of what you were? I mean, wasn't he playing to the audience, and weren't you part of the audience, or were you invisible too?
So my father views his children like his dogs, as extensions of his own body and life. He genuinely does not know that we are separate, and the dogs and the children are about the same. So that really is the way he is. The things he is attentive to, the people that he is attentive to, are the people who come to him for confession, who have questions about faith, who want to have those serious life and death conversations. But to him, like the people in his house, they were just part of his own atmosphere. I think he probably felt that his body and his mind and his spirit filled up the whole home, and that we were just kind of like figments floating around, like his pancreas or something. It's like, oh, that's my daughter Pancreas over there. It's my second child.
People who are, as you've described in Priest Daddy and as you've just described now, people like that do not sound like good, often, I should say, are not good listeners. And yet he had this role in this job where it was incumbent on him to pay attention, right?
Yeah.
To people who, as you've just said, people who would, how do you square that?
I don't know. I, luckily, was never required to go to my father for confession, so I never got to see this firsthand. Can you imagine how horrible that would have been? Well, there was this boy. Like, you could not have done it. But something happens to my father. I remember once I was in the hospital when I was a teenager. I was very depressed, and he came to sit with me sort of in my hospital room, and I describe it in Priest Daddy as like he just sort of rested against the chair, and he was so calm, and his voice sounded like a wave in a woodcut. And I think more than anything, it's not his ears, he listens with his voice, and then he brings something comforting to them. Probably I would be totally appalled at the advice that he gives people or the things that he says, but there's something about the physical presence, and there's something about this soothing musical voice he comes out with that I think that is his listening.
So, do you think he is able to quiet his mind enough to be present, like you just described?
And maybe it's restful. I know that there are situations that I'm in where I'm doing something like this and you're very big and you're like doing a big show and it's like jazz hands. And then you go back to your hotel and you kind of just rest. And you rest in your body and you rest in your pain and you rest in your experience and whatever you said. And it's very, very peaceful, right? I think you need both aspects.
Okay, what's the thing with the traveling and the weeping and the Gordon Lightfoot?
That's the whole deal. I get up in a plane and I become a freaking genius, and I love Gordon Lightfoot. Okay, this is familial too because my brother Paul is like obsessed with the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald for some reason.
What, really?
Yeah, my mom had it as his ringtone when he would call her that the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald would come up on the phone, yeah.
Does he know you're here in Minnesota?
I'm going to tell him. When I get back and
I know.
I'm resting in myself, I'm going to text him just that one song, Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
He'll know where you've been.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that thing with travel is about dislocation.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, no, I think it is.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, well, pilots and flight attendants, they basically get brain damaged after a time just from like changing time zones too much. Something happens to you up there. And it was kind of a thing. So there's some later chapters where very sort of extreme things happen on airplanes. So that might have something to do with it too. Like the airplane for me has been a theater of extremity, I would say.
Okay, I didn't really mean time zones.
Yeah.
I meant dislocation in that.
In the self.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll speak to that.
Yeah, we'll speak to that. I mean, so when I'm on an airplane, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but like that is the time that I'm going to get ideas. If I have a lecture to write, that's when I'll do it.
Really?
Yes, I will write poetry on airplanes. I just feel like my brain gets really great up there. The air is so thin and I'm just absolutely flying. I'm like, oh, I'm a genius.
This is what you
Gordon
meant by
Lightfoot
I'm a
is playing.
genius.
Yes,
I mean,
I'm a
literally,
genius.
you are having genius
I am
ideas.
the airplane genius. Yes, thank you. I'm the main one on this planet Earth.
Do you trust those ideas?
I do. I mean, you read them when you get back down on the ground, but yeah, there's something about it. I don't know. It's a little bit like having too much coffee, a little bit like having no sleep. You're just up there. A lot of the writers I know will say the same thing. You should start asking this to everyone.
I've never heard
You've
that
never
before.
heard this?
No.
You become a genius on an airplane. It's very simple. Everybody check it out. It's so fun. Try the Gordon Lightfoot thing, though. It might be like a necessary ingredient. I'm not sure.
That is I asked about soundtracks. That's the genius soundtrack that really starts the creative impulse
Kicks
moving.
it off. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not kidding me.
No.
This is real.
It's so real. I would never lie to you. I'm going to show you my phone backstage. It's going to be like recently played, Gordon Lightfoot.
Okay. So your experience with COVID,
Yeah. It can
not
be me.
the character in the novel.
Yeah, it can be me. Yeah.
Was not quite so romantic as being in Scotland and coming down. Can you tell the story?
I can tell this story, yes. I contracted the novel coronavirus from John Harvard when I went to Harvard to give a lecture about the internet. It seems very ironic in retrospect. And I got there, and it was during the Biogen outbreak that sort of seeded COVID up and down the East Coast.
Wow.
Yes, and I had no idea at the time. So I got there, and I was sort of like talking to my liaison, and she was like, oh, we thought you would have canceled. And that was my first thought, like, oh, maybe I don't know what's going on, and I made a mistake in coming here. And I remember I was giving my lecture in front of this statue of winged time, and the whole audience was coughing, and I was like, maybe not. And then I got home, and a couple days later, I was like, I'm not the same person I was before. It was like you woke up and you felt just genuinely different, like you had been replaced. So my husband at the same time was ill. the main feature of his illness.
With COVID?
Yes,
I can't
yes.
yeah.
I know,
okay.
and it's very terrible to think that that's something that I gave to him, that I was the Plague Mary. It's very sad. But his main symptom, which I thought that he was completely faking it, right? His main symptom was that he was just building cat characters in Skyrim with like huge ripped bodies and then like giant cat heads and giving them amazing names. And then he would only just play through the intro. He was never even playing the game. And I was like, oh, he's having fun out there, isn't he? While I'm dying in the bedroom, ooh, enjoying his video games. And he was like, yeah, I was never even playing the game. I was just making cats and taking them through the introduction. For me, I mostly had neurological symptoms. I had like terrible headaches. I sort of was seeing things that weren't there. Gorillas in the trees were the main thing that I suffered from. But actually, it's kind of cool to see gorillas in the trees. And I was like,
well, what is it like to see gorillas in the trees?
Listen, they're out there, baby. Like, just take a look. I was like, oh, there's one. Oh, there's another one. I think, honestly, in retrospect, it was just kind of like a pattern-finding thing. My eye was like, oh, here's a little flash over here, here's a flash. And it was trying to resolve them into images, and it was just making mistakes. But at the time, I was like, all right, I guess I live in gorilla world now.
One of the things that occurred to me in trying to make sense of this
Well,
was when the character,
Sure.
and maybe this was your experience too,
Could be.
when you would try to describe what you were going through, it seemed like you met incredulity, some resistance, which sometimes made you question just what you were experiencing?
yeah, I had very good experiences early on, just like going to the urgent care.
Yeah.
They were sort of like, oh, of course, it was new. No one knew what to expect. So they were like, all right, we'll pay attention to this. But the second you go to a neurologist and you don't have a brain tumor, they don't know what's going on with you, and that is like way above the pay grade. And a lot of times, too, in that state, I was in status migrainosis, which is you are just having a migraine all the time. You're in a state of aura or in a state of migraine, like at all times. And mine had the sort of like Wonderland components that like Lewis Carroll would have, right? Where it was like a hallway is longer, this zigzag suddenly, like
everything
my
was
arm's
distorted.
Everything's
and,
distorted.
yeah.
It was completely like falling down that rabbit hole. When you tell a doctor who has trained, for however many years that you're seeing gorillas or that your hand doesn't belong to you, you're not necessarily going to get the treatment that you would desire. You might be treated like a crazy person. And so that was kind of, that was a wild experience. But I had so much sympathy for them because they had been on the front lines of things. They had all gotten ill very early, too. And I didn't think that it was actually what I was saying made sense either. So it was not like I was putting it on them. I was sort of apologizing for what I had to tell them and the fact that I didn't know what was happening either.
That's very understanding of you.
I know. I'm a great person. I'm just like a very wonderful person. But it is. I would go in and I would be very anxious and I would try not to be a problem at all. And but you need to be a problem if you're experiencing those things. That's you can be helped. Like there is a name for this. There are explanations.
I mean, at this point, did you feel like you were in the chronic phase of the?
Yeah.
It had gone past. Yeah. When most people have recovered, and now you're moving into.
Yeah.
Which is also happening to the character.
To whoever that is. Yeah. So there was about 8 weeks where you felt great and you were just amazing and you were a genius on an airplane. And it was just like, yeah, I didn't die. I feel fantastic. And then the first sort of thing that I noticed is like I started watching old episodes of Xena Warrior Princess. And I was like, these plots don't make any sense. And I was just talking to a friend about it and he's like, of course they don't make sense. It's Xena Warrior Princess. But at the time, it deeply troubled me that I'm like, well, Xena gets to the village, and I don't understand what happens next. And then there's like a god who comes in here, and there's her lesbian sidekick. What's going on with that? And I was just breaking my brain over the fact that I could not understand Xena. And I was like, something's the matter with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has gone far past.
This has gone far past
most
normal
people's
confusion.
experience with this. You know what this reminded me of? Have you ever read Megan O'Rourke's book about? You have. Oh,
absolutely.
good. I wanted to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
I thought. Do you know? You can see why I thought about this.
Yeah, because she was actually one of the books that I mentioned. So she's a poet as well, and she wrote a book about having chronic Lyme and sort of like the history
Yes.
of these illnesses. But she early on, too, had written about having Lyme and the fact that when she was on doxycycline, she felt better, but she still kind of didn't believe in the illness,
Yes.
right? So she herself was a skeptic, and I thought that was really interesting. And my book is kind of a counterpoint to something like that, because a book like that is like, you do have to have that authority. You have to do the research. You have to look into the history. You have to speak in a voice that people are going to believe and listen to. And I thought, what if you don't do that at all? And you don't care about anyone believing you or anyone listening or anyone like thinking, okay, yeah, like I trust her on this. It's been a very strange experience to go speak about this book to people and people believe you. You're like, wait a minute. Like that was never a necessity to me. I was like, what if there was a book about illness that really is just like presenting what it was like, and you don't have to believe me?
One of the things, this is so fun to talk to you about this as a counterpoint, because one of the things that she writes, that the longer it got more mysterious, the longer the chronic illness went on, the more mysterious it got, the harder it became to describe it.
Yeah.
There's a sensibility of that here. And the more unreal it felt to herself.
Yeah.
And she says, without answers, at my most desperate, I came to feel in some unarticulated way that if I could just tell the right story about what was happening, I could make myself feel better. If only I could figure out what the story was, like the child in a fantasy novel who must discover her secret name, I could become myself again.
Yeah. It's really like that. There was another writer who the character encounters halfway through in the book, Susanna Clark, wrote Piranesi while suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome, and it took her 10 years. She spends most days in a darkened room, and she just was plugging away. It's that obstinacy almost, that writerly thing that keeps going. And she comes out of it and she hands the manuscript to her wonderful husband, Colin, and she says, is this anything? Is this a book? And he says, yeah, this is a book. This is more than a book. So she talked about chronic fatigue syndrome, and she said one of the features of the illness is that you couldn't choose between sentences. That's like one of the main things you have to do as a writer. Like, it's a very big problem when you can't do that. So when I met her during the ceremony for the Women's Prize and she won, I like broke down in tears, because I thought like the fact that she was able to do that meant that I was going to be able to do it again.
So are you saying, though, that you were kind of absolving yourself of doing what Megan is talking about, which is, I've got to get the story right so that people will.
Yeah, it didn't seem like a thing that other people had to validate, but I wanted to get something right inside myself. So I had all of these things. I had the refrains. I had things like, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. I didn't understand exactly where it all went. My obsession was putting things into a sort of chronology and figuring out like where things belonged. That's what was so hard.
I wondered about that, because there is a chronological sense to this. Why did that matter?
I think that time moved very differently during the pandemic. It felt at times like a stagnant pool. At other times it felt like a cut up, or like it had been put through a paper shredder or something like that. And I don't think that I was the only one to experience it that way. I think that even people who were not ill experienced a difference of time during COVID, and coming out of it and having to arrange it, there's this tremendous anxiety of making time march again. I remember I was sitting with Susanna at a pub, and we were looking at each other and seeing this similarity sort of in our faces and our lives and our purposes, and I just felt time start to march, right? And ultimately, of course, it ends up that the real, like the way the book goes, the way things belong, the way it's supposed to happen is chronological. Like, it's almost always true that if you're having problems with arrangement, chronology is the answer. Like, put things in the order they actually happen in.
I think you said downstairs in the green room that you wondered if people would, was it care about the book or care about your COVID experience, or?
I think Well, we were talking a little bit about reviews, and I thought that it was funny that people were reviewing it and seeming to be able to follow it. Because again, once you release it into the world, you're like, hey guys, it's your problem now. Like, you figure it out. And so I think to receive that attention or that care, and that is what reviewing is, it's what reading is, it's what you're doing right now, like that is care. Maybe I felt like I wasn't going to get that, or I didn't deserve it, or I didn't want to expect it if it wasn't going to come, right? It's a strange book.
How much did you care about that, though?
Oh, no. I mean, the second that a book is done, you can't care anymore. You can't think about those things. You have to move on to the next one.
I don't want to miss this. I'm curious about how much reading you did about the experience of serious illness, chronic illness, to understand what you'd been through and what the character was going to go through.
So the books that I read were more along the lines of something like Leonora Carrington's Down Below, which was an account of her sort of a 1940 institutionalization. And it's kind of the book that the character is referring to when she's like, the best books about craziness are the ones that contain like diagrams where like a hallway is labeled hallway and then this other thing is labeled like God's perineum or something like that. You're like, that is an illness book. Like, that's what you want. So I read things like that. That was a little bit the model, and I liked the fact that she was so matter-of-fact about it. And I really liked books like The Plague and I, Betty McDonald. She had tuberculosis back in the day during the Depression, I believe. And it was just sort of like, this is what we ate. These were my roommates. There was that sort of thing. So I would say that the only sort of researchy type book that I read was Oliver Sacks's Migraine, and his other work, like The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. Yeah.
Do you remember how old you were when you encountered the idea of serious illness and death in a book?
That is a really good question. I don't know that I do. We had a book. We had Let Us Now Praise Famous Men, and by James Ziggy, and it was one of the few books in our home that was real. And there were those great sort of like photographs, right, of poverty and sort of people who were sick. And people who were really like, too poor to scrape up a subsistence. And I felt like there was something in that kind of introduced me to it, right? That there was it was not all blossoming and health, that there were people in real situations where they did not get what they needed, like not just their spiritual selves, but their bodies, right? I feel that's my instinct to say that it was a book like that. We had just a lot of submarine books in our house, and I mean, there's death on a submarine, but mostly it's just men getting very nervous. And then we had a couple of accidentally very literary books, and that's probably where I would have encountered that.
Yeah, what about novels? I mean, because the first thing I thought about was Little Women.
Oh, yeah.
Where, I don't know, I'm trying to remember how old I was when I read Little Women, not fully understanding it the first time, reading it several times over the years. But I'm pretty sure that was the first time I understood.
That's so interesting.
That somebody can die and the whole family is going to grieve.
Yeah. That book holds up. I mean, if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking about going back to it, that book is like a classic for a reason. And Claire Danes was so amazing in that role. I was like, damn, she's like getting to eat all that broth. That looks good as hell. So I would encounter stuff like that, but I would also kind of think like, that looks good. Like, or when Mary Poppins pours the medicine out and it changes color, and then hers is obviously alcoholic. I was like, wonderful, wonderful. So I was experiencing what you're talking about, which is like, God, the gravity of life and death. But I was also like, medicine, or like, there was that too. There was this sense of like, I don't have to participate in regular life. I can stay home and maybe like watch soap operas and try to figure out what's going on those. Yeah.
What kind of a reader were you as a young reader?
I mean, I don't even remember learning. I was one of those kids who learned when they were about like 3 years old or so, and it was just that I could always read, and I read so obsessively, and I read so deeply into the scenes of books that I felt like I was there. And when I was ill, what I tried to do was return to some of those scenes, to some of those childhood books, and it was like someone had been in those rooms, knocked everything over, scattered, stolen things. Like you knew something was wrong when something was wrong in your reading. That is so personal. That is so deeply inside a person. It's such like a formative childhood site, like a theater inside a person. And to find it disarranged, it was the same as finding myself disarranged.
How disconcerting. How long did it take that to come back to you?
That took a really long time. The first sort of experience I had of regular reading again was after I had the mushroom tea, and I decided for some reason to read Anna Karenina. Yeah, I know. It was a really good idea. It was an airplane idea. But I think in the book it was like she took mushrooms and she read Anna Karenina so hard she almost died. Yeah. But it was really, so I was taking these notes and I was just in this wonderful feeling again of being a child, being in the ballrooms, turning as they turned, because when you didn't have that sense of time, you weren't turning as they turned.
Oh, I
everything
love
was
that.
everything was happening to me, and I was like, okay, like there is a way forward, it can happen again.
That restored your belief that
Yeah.
there was the other side to this.
Yeah, that I could live in the scenes again. Yeah.
All right. How about the first excerpt,
Oh yeah, let's
if
do
you
it.
will? Do you want to say anything to introduce it?
I think that I will. So
Okay.
this is from a chapter called Beginning Metals. And it is about the characters, which overlaps somewhat with mine, her experience in a metalsmithing class. And in this, she is attempting to do Delft clay casting, which I can tell you more about in a moment if you wish
can't
to
wait.
know. Yes. The night it came to do my casting, I chopped mud for 2.5 hours. You had to get all the lumps out before you started. Never tell me that. I would pack the cylinder, push the brain in, and realize it was wrong somehow. I had forgotten to put proper air holes, or the clay wasn't dense enough, or he was positioned in such a way that the sprue of metal would spew out of his mouth. It was like designing a man. This one won't live, I would understand, as I would pry apart the cylinder and examine the impression. 2 of the child women had never even heard of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I had to do the voice for them over and over. Turtles, my body. The brain is Krang. Yes, you are correct. Girl, you crazy, Kim said over my shoulder in an intimate tone, having just fed a huge ammonite pendant to the tumbler. Kim, what do you do for a living? I asked her, brushing my high and tight off my forehead with the back of my wrist. Radio DJ, she told me, low, on Magic 103. In the corner, my enemy was doing water casting into a huge metal pail. I got a big one, she cried, like a pearl diver, reaching elbow deep down in the water. I'm a scientist, I could hear from Natalie's corner. An ocean scientist. I could have cried with laughter. It was clear I was never going to stop chopping the clay. The other students who had done castings, their pieces had been full of pits because they hadn't been as careful about it as you are being, said the teacher, carefully. I had been writing about suicide all morning. A friend's, not mine. March 2020. My fingertips were stained a deep earth brown. I buried my object over and over, dusted with baby powder. I'm making all the mistakes so you don't have to, I would apologize every time someone came to check my progress. I have a pastry tool you could use for that, MacGyver said kindly from across the table. I saw my friend standing then next to one of her cakes. My fingertips went searching among the cool crumbs, flour, sugar, butter. After you've done it 3 or 4 times, you'll want to stop and add a little fresh metal, said the teacher, as she demonstrated. It's like an eclipse, she said, aiming the flame at the crucible. You want to look, but not look. But I looked. We all did. A children's book I could never find again about a boy who digs up, in his backyard, a ball of entirely new color. I thought I saw it then. That white indigo vaporous peach. As it began to go, it was like crowds or birds wheeling up. When you think it's ready, wait 60 more seconds, she said. We watched. Something vulnerable in the back and shoulders of someone who had been on the production line. She had forgotten to tie her hair back, It flowed forward, silver threads running through, and mine. She held the flame at the lip as the color gathered, ready to fall. You have to tell yourself you're going to do it, she said, bracing herself. And then actually, she poured. We gathered around to see. Each time you did it, you would fail. Each time you would know a little more. No, you're perfect, my enemy said over my shoulder. She was exactly 6 feet tall. We shook our heads. No, this one wouldn't make it. So melt again. The walls breathing in and out, the spinning skin, the world a little granule, and then the green flash.
I know exactly what you are. I know exactly where this leads. Allow me to claim I'm in the dark as I feel my way across the sea. Ooh, ooh, you should have come with a warning. Ooh, ooh, even though I would have ignored it. Sometimes all you need is a single note stretched out, and you'd swear you heard your name. Sometimes all it takes is that rocky shore coming close, and you'll never be the same. When I began, my aim was true. I'd studied the winds, I had a plan. Gathered my sails and set them loose, intending a destination of soft sand. Ooh, ooh, you should have come with a warning. Ooh, ooh, even though I would have ignored it. Sometimes all you need is a single note stretched out, and you'd swear you heard your name. Sometimes all it takes is that rocky shore coming close, and you'll never be the same. When they find my body wrecked and scattered, will you sing your song for me again? Maybe once they hear its beauty, everyone I knew will understand that sometimes all you need is a single note stretched out, and you'd swear you heard your name. Sometimes all it takes is that rocky shore coming close, and you'll never be the same. You'll never be the same. The same. The same.
Sarah Morris. Sarah, oh my gosh, I can't imagine a better song for this. How about you, Patricia? I mean, it was like she Okay, what's the story of the song before we talk about it?
I wrote it years ago, inspired. I do writing prompts for most of my songs, and the prompt was siren.
Siren.
And so I just thought of like
Wow.
desire that might call you and how you might know that you're going to get wrecked and you go anyways. And I've got a new album coming out soon, and it's
All
going to be
right.
on there. And so I was like, that's a good song to sing.
I love it. It couldn't have been more perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What'd you hear in that?
I mean, it's certainly no Gordon Lightfoot, but it was very, very beautiful. I was mostly thinking, I mean, I love to watch performers. I love to watch people's bodies in performance, the control, knowing how to use a microphone. It's just, I love it. Every single time I see any sort of live theater, music, dance, I just really identify, with the bodies doing it. And I'm just like happy that they're among us and that they have the gifts that they have.
But it is no Gordon Lightfoot.
It's no freaking Gordon Lightfoot, though.
You're listening to Talking Volumes at the Fitzgerald Theater. I'm Kerri Miller in conversation with Patricia Lockwood. Her new book is titled, Will There Ever Be Another You? I have a lot of questions left here.
Yeah, get in there. Get crazy.
What's with the weird? Yeah, this is for listeners at home who will hear this. There's a very weird psychedelic cat face and head on the cover of this book. It's disturbing. This thing glowed from my book pile for weeks.
I'm so angry. That to me is normal. That is a normal book cover to me. It was the one time they asked me what I wanted, and I was like, they just discovered that these animals fluoresce. Yes. And I was like, the spring hair pictures that you see, and it's like they're lit up and they're pink and patches. I was like, something like that would be cool. I'm not sure if you could tell, but when the lights came low, my dress was like fluorescing. So it felt very...
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but like the pink and the green was getting picked up. But I was like, it's something where you're yourself, but more so, like neon, fluorescence, right? Like the thing is still there, but there's the color is what's strange, maybe.
I think the reason they asked you what you wanted was they had no friggin' idea.
They had no clue
what to put on the cover. What do we do with this?
They also, I think, wanted an excuse to put a cat on the cover. I don't know. I have a very famous cat, and I think that they were like, well, maybe we can get a little cross-promotional Miette fan action here. Thank you. Big meow for her. Thank you very much. She's still alive, by the way. There was a rumor going around that she was dead. She is very much alive.
What, on Instagram?
Listen, it was
Is that where people see?
It was,
your
it was
cat?
one of those like Paul is dead Beatles things. She's that famous that they were like, I guess she's dead.
It wasn't like a Paul is.
There was someone like
Beatles
responded to me and they
thing.
were like, oh, may her memory be a blessing. And I was like, no, she's alive. She's like here right now in my lap. She's fine.
All right, back to the excerpt and the rocks and the creation that goes on, and that you really do this, right?
Yeah,
you make jewelry, you work with
with metals. There's just something about it. I mean,
what's satisfying about it first?
Okay, well, first of all, if you don't know, get yourself a creme brulee torch, some copper wire, some silver solder, and you just wrap it around a mandrel, you saw it through, you flux it, you apply the solder right there, and you heat it, sort of like this, and then you warm it all up, and then you see something happen that every time it happens is going to be so wonderful, and the solder will flow, and your piece that was not joined before is now a single piece, and it can last forever. There is nothing like that feeling. There's almost a baby thing that would happen in class listening to the other child women. They were all child women. There was no like adult person in this class. They were all like wearing these Godspell overalls. I loved it so much. But when the solder would flow, they would just be so satisfied. They would gasp. And then you would quench it in the water, and it makes this hissing sound, and everyone loved that. It was this experience of like universality. People like making things, right? They like having skills and abilities. And there's just something about that that I think brings you to a more innocent state, a childlike state, where maybe you feel like you can go forward knowing something a little bit new.
You know what I loved about that scene too is the decision to, no, we're ripping it up. No, we're putting it back.
Yeah.
It's kind of brave, right?
It is kind of great. Yeah, I mean, you can melt things. You think at the beginning, right, that you can ruin something, It's so hard to ruin a piece of metal. I had no idea. You can just keep working and working and working with it. It's not like writing where you can really screw it up. You're just like, it will take what you give it, you can polish it, and I mean, it's soft, it's malleable, it wants to work with you.
This is what I wondered, whether there is a through line to what you will do in these classes and the way you work.
Well, I'm a spy, so I was also there because the teacher was constantly saying really great things too, right? She was like, stay out of the blue cone of nothingness, you know?
Really?
Yes, she was constantly
Wow.
saying things like that. And you'd be like, oh, how do you know when you're finished? And she would like dance away and be like, that's a life lesson. She had this beautiful voice, and you would hear these things, and they seemed to be more broadly about art. So I'm like, as long as they let me keep taking these classes, I'm going to, and I'm going to steal all this material for my craft talks because I feel like it's useful.
But what about overall with the connection between, I can put it all back, I can't ruin it,
Yeah.
I can start again, I can polish.
Yeah, I can join things again. I mean, I
Yeah.
felt that the world had been broken, right? I think a lot of people felt that way. And there were also the chapters in which, you know, the husband character becomes very ill, as mine did. And as I did in a chapter called The Wound, you know, she sort of deals with her husband's need for
Yes.
caretaking, right? So she's like, you know, this is something I can do. This is like a practical use that I can have in the world. Oftentimes as a writer, you're like, well, I'm kind of like not totally necessary, right? Like I'm kind of an expendable person. I'm not one of these frontline people that they really need. But my experience taking care of my niece and then taking care of my husband is like boots on the ground. I know what to do. It's like watching Law and Order SVU, and it's like you are going to get in that cop car and you're going to get a freaking coffee and a donut and you're going to find that rapist. Listen, you have a job to do in this world. I was like, I am so on it. I am so ready. I can do this. And there was something about the metalsmithing class that was like that too. Of course, we were all very bad at it, right? That was the funny part. We were very ambitious. We were very bad, but we really wanted it. There was something about just working with materials, making things that were permanent, bringing things together again that felt very therapeutic.
Are there mornings that you wake up and you think, if only there was, you know, if I had one of those jobs where you do this and then you do this and there's a prescribed kind of agenda to it. Do you ever long for that?
I mean, I do have my own prescribed agenda. It's just absolutely insane. It's just that I have to wake up and have my rooster hair and be in my pajamas and drink 4 shots of espresso, which I don't know, it's kind of a lot, and then go to the moon and then have my special airplane thoughts that I have. And when I'm not doing that, I feel very strange. So being on a tour or something like that, I'm like, wow, I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I have a job to do in the morning. I got to get in that cop car and like go to the scene of the crime and really be active where I'm supposed to be active. Yeah.
So, okay, so you've you've imposed kind of a routine, but
Yeah.
once you sit down to write, there really is no prescription for
No.
that, right?
No. The only thing I can tell people is you have your quad espresso. That's super, super important. So you have that first.
You
and
tell this to young writers.
I tell it to babies and kids. I'm like, listen, have your quad espresso and get ready to go. Put your cat right here in your lap, and then you're going to open a book and you are going to read it just until one of the words seems to open up like a door, and that means you're about to get an idea, and then you have
Oh.
to wait for it and write it down. You've experienced that, right?
No.
You've never. Oh,
The
no.
word opens up like a door.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably like dyslexia or something like that. That's like really easily explained. But there's something that happens where it's like almost you see behind something. And that it's a feeling of incipience, like something is about to happen. And then you have the idea. You haven't had that? Hasn't happened to you?
I'm trying to figure out whether that is that something that you began to, acquire? You began to understand what that meant, or did you feel like you had it from the beginning?
Always, when I was a
Really?
kid. Yes, I would experience states of strangeness, and I never knew what they were. I think now that it probably was migraine even then, right? It
was
didn't,
migraine?
Yeah, I think
Oh.
it just didn't have traditional head pain. But I would feel these crazy things, and I would have like sort of visual, like pulsings and things like that. I would get that kind of almost like the pre-seizure feeling where you feel like something's going to happen, like you feel like you're at the top of a roller coaster. So migraine migraine and epilepsy are related. Like, these are sort of like mystical states you go into. And for some reason, it happens to me when I'm reading. It happens at other times too.
When
but
you're reading or writing?
reading.
When you're reading.
Yeah, and that's the triggering point, and then I go into the writing.
Oh, so
Yeah.
were you asking me if I've had that happen with reading or writing?
Just like ideas.
Reading, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right? And then like the word swings open,
Yes.
and then you go into your own writing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I experience. I like to work off someone else. It's why I like criticism so much, because you can really like think through someone else. You can put on their abilities. You can kind of do what they do for a moment, right? And then the door swings open and you're off into your own thing.
I want to ask you about something that I'm doing exactly what you said happens to you when you tour, which is you said something.
You said something.
29 years
this.
ago. No, you said something interesting a few years ago. You were at the Center for Fiction. And you said, I almost never feel like I'm participating in a conversation at all. I do think that, in a sense, I write monologues, which can be both a strength and a failing. What's the strength?
I think the fact that you remain individual and you remain yourself. There is something to the fact that we are people with fingerprints and we are different from each other. I mean, part of the subject of my last novel was like, why are we all sounding the same? Like, where has that individual sort of like voice gone? So I think there's something to be staked there. I think that we should, put our claim or stake our flag in weird literature and write, like the ability to write out of that weirdness and sound like ourselves. Even if people are not necessarily able to follow or they've not had those thoughts themselves.
What's the failing?
I mean, just that you're a freak, that you're an absolute freak and no one knows what you're talking about. And sometimes you just think, oh, I would love to just like write a novel where two nice teenagers hook up and they fall in love and they just like have a nice time together and they get married or something.
Well, you
eventually.
could.
I could do that. I don't think I will, though. There was a woman the other night who was like, well, now that you've read Anna Karenina and enjoyed it so much, are you going to write something more like Tolstoy? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get right on that and immediately start writing like Tolstoy. Like, what? I mean, you can only write out of yourself. You can like take on ideas, skills from other people. You can see their tricks and how they move, but you're writing from your own person.
What happens when you can see the writer's tricks?
Then I'm usually writing an essay. I mean, I don't think that tricks are bad necessarily. With something like poetry, you can almost feel what they're about to do if you've read enough of it, right? But with novels, I feel like I still don't know enough about the novel that I can always be surprised. But yes, it can be a thing where people get tics or things can get a little bit too crunchy or concrete. And like everyone has that thing where if you're writing an essay and you have to read 20 books, like by the end of it, you're like, shut up. Like, I get it. I understand your deal.
Right.
Like, yeah. So you do get to that point. That's I always stop 3/4 of the way through.
What do you mean by things get crunchy?
Get a little bit like ossified. Right, not as flexible. Like they're reaching out to the thing that they would usually do instead of thinking like there might be something fresh that works here.
So when you're reviewing a novel like that, what would you say about that? I see the writer reaching for their tricks. And
Yeah, I literally would say that. I was like, well, this certainly gets ossified here. And there's like a fossil situation. So any feeling that I'm having like that just goes in the notebook. And if they're interesting enough, those things just go into the piece. If you start to have like that sensation that something's happening, you just write it down. And that is going to be instrumental probably in what you write.
But it's going into the piece.
It's
and
going in the piece.
The writer will presumably ultimately read that.
Yeah,
And
jump
they
off
will
a
be
bridge.
like,
Yep.
she saw my trick.
She saw my trick. I know. So this is kind of the thing. This is the thing where I do want to quit sometimes because I'm like, I don't want to discourage people who are alive. I love to work on dead people. They can't be killed. It's like no one is. It's fine that you're writing this about John Updike. But when you're writing about people who are alive, it's difficult to write a book. It's difficult to write almost any book. Not some, but most books.
Do you want to name names?
I'm not
on the
absolutely not going to name a name. No, like any kind of political book, anything like that. I don't even consider those books really. But for the most part,
Wait. Now what? You don't consider the books about politics, real books?
Books written by politicians,
Oh,
or
by
polemical
politicians.
books, like generally that sort of thing, or books meant to like persuade, convince, that sort of thing. There are a lot of book-shaped objects in the world that are not books.
There's some good books about politics. There's some
Listen,
great novels.
You enjoy those. You have fun
Really?
with those over there. I just don't even need
okay.
to. Not my business.
I can just keep those to myself.
You keep those.
All right.
Those are yours.
You don't want any titles.
Nope,
You don't.
nope,
Nope.
nope.
Okay. All right. You were saying.
I don't think I was.
You were. You were saying. You were talking about, and when the person is alive and it's challenging to write.
Yeah.
And
you don't ever want to be the person. I mean, Joy Williams got, it's mentioned actually at the end of this, she got just a cracking review that came out, I think, like before her first book, and it was before it had even been released. So it was like it never even got this chance, and it put her off that sort of writing for like 10 years or something. And when you hear something like that, you really think about what you're doing. Like, you don't ever want to be the person who does something like that. So care is required. You do have to think about these things. I'm never out there to do like a hatchet job. I always want to write about something where there's something there. I'm never writing about something merely to mock it, but the writing always has to be worthwhile. There always has to be something in the sentences that opens the door or that moves me in some way.
What's the last novel that you read where you said, boy, time well spent. This is really worthwhile.
Yeah, so I was doing an event in London with Joe Dunthorne, and he had a couple novels that I read afterwards. You can't read them beforehand because, like, if your interviewer writes bad novels, it's going to totally mess up the conversation. So you have to go in blind. But then afterwards, I was like, wow, he was great. And I read his novels, and I thought they were totally fantastic. Submarine and The Adulterants were the ones that I read.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he's Welsh. It's a thing. So there's a whole
I love Wales.
There's a whole different country over there that you're going to learn all
great.
about when you read these books.
Hey, what's with the rocks?
The rocks.
There's a lot of rocks.
I mean, I'll show you
here.
my bag downstairs. I have a rock collection in my bag.
Are you carrying it?
It's downstairs.
Shoot.
I know. I would have done your tarot reading.
I know.
Yeah, I know. I can do your tarot
What?
reading. If someone fetches it, I mean, I will do it for you.
Did someone fetch the rocks?
Someone fetch my Treadwell's witch bag from downstairs. And
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
Wait a minute, you read tarot with the rocks?
Yeah, and it's really intense, and it gets really super deep. Yeah.
Oh,
So you
my
can't ask like
gosh.
yes or no questions, but it's like, oh, if you have questions about your career, like you're like, man, I got to get out of this game and become a zookeeper or something.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly what I'm
That's
thinking.
really what you're thinking of. Yeah, so I can address something like that, and I just do little like past, present, future spreads. I was always a person who liked to think through objects. Like some kids play with Barbies and they arrange them relationally.
That was me.
That was you. And I'm like, well, these rocks are my Barbies, and I'm obviously putting them into little families and doing this and that with them, and that's how I thought about them.
Have you read Marcia Bjornrud's book about rock, Turning to Stone?
No. Is it good? Oh my God,
yes.
do we have it?
Yeah. We don't have it.
We don't?
We have the rocks, though.
We have the rocks?
Let's bring them out. Oh my gosh, look at the size of that. What?
Jingle, jingle! It makes
All right, yeah.
It makes some noise.
Let's make sure
taking this
listeners
out.
hear how many rocks are in there.
I want you to understand
This
how
is,
special.
show me, what?
How special this is.
Ah, okay. There's a small linen bag.
This is an aumônière, which
Ah.
is what a little girl in France in like 1910 would take to mass.
Okay.
And she would have like her little coins in here. Oh, I'm very serious about this. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna pass this to you.
Okay.
And you're gonna get your hands in there. I'm trying to like
right.
stay on the
Wow.
mic. Yeah.
This
so-
is the coolest thing that's ever happened.
it's
on the
incredibly
stage of the
cool. So
Fitzgerald
don't look at
Theater.
them. Don't look at
Don't
them.
look
Yeah,
at
you're
them.
sort of just like feeling around. You can feel as much as you want. Sort of like think about what you want to ask your question about, and you're going to draw 3 stones.
I don't know what to ask. Okay. 3 stones. All right. Do I hand them to you?
Yes, please. Ooh.
I love reading tarot cards. This is exciting. I feel a cylindrical. Yeah.
Go for it, babe.
All right.
Okay.
Do they have different colors? Can we
Yes.
keep one more?
Yes, one more.
Where'd you get all these?
I collected them over the years, and one morning, a day after I had had mushroom tea, I went over to my rock collection and was like, these rocks have names, and perhaps there's there's a fortune-telling system that can be devised. And I just started writing in my notebook. I'm like, well, this is obviously this, and that's what this means. And I was like, this is how Aleister Crowley felt probably all the time. It was a great experience.
All right, I feel something this is flat and smooth. I like the feel of this one. All right.
Oh my God.
You're just saying that.
No.
You're just saying that.
No.
Really?
This is part of a joke that I was telling. But we'll go into your stones first. This is an ocean jasper, and it is called the Lock. Yes, it is very gorgeous. It's sort of light green with darker green and then like pink on it. And so that's what that is. This is like a fossil belemnite. So it's something that was once alive, and this is known as tooth and claw.
Oh,
And
yes, that fits.
This is the door. This is what you're going to walk through, or it's what you're going to see in the words when you're reading.
Answered my question.
It's going to swing open. So you tell me what your question is, and I'll tell you what it means.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Are the most adventurous experiences still ahead of me or behind me?
Girl, they're ahead because you got the door.
Woo! Yay!
So in the past, this is the lock, and that can mean that there was some constraint on you, that there was some sort of sequestering or some sort of inhibition, something keeping you from doing these things. What we have in the present, tooth and claw, is you're surviving, you're hanging in there, you are very tough, but there are maybe things happening that cause you to need that toughness more than you would like to expend it, right? You don't always want to be tough, but you are tough enough to take your future into your own hands and experience the freedom of the door. You're going to step through this, and this is going to be what you want it to be. This is a kiwi jasper. I was doing readings for the girls at the Bloomsbury offices in London, and they all kept drawing the door, and I was like, girl, quit your job, babe. Sorry, quit. You got to quit. Everybody's got to quit. But no, the door, yes, this is wondrous possibility, and this is opening for you. So there is great freedom that lies ahead for you.
I love it.
Yes.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
Wow. Oh my gosh. The most wonderful night. All right. Would you read the last excerpt?
I would love
We'll have
to.
a little music, and then we'll come out and for questions in the audience. Yes. Thank you. That was amazing.
You're welcome. I love doing that. If the whole element of air could suddenly be sucked into a whirlpool and then begin to lift up the sea and the carpet of the land, then this could happen. If it could be made to rain, hail, if even houses could, for a moment, serve tea in the middle of the sky, then this could happen. And our familiars be lost, be stranded by flooding, and come home a year later with the bells on their collars ringing. Hadn't the brindled bulldog done that after Pa left him to ford the swollen river? If this could happen in books, a whole family crawling across the floor in their nightgowns, begging for dippers of water. They were leaving that place. There was the sick body. Let me on the roof, please, she had begged her husband then. There, a door at the back of the bedroom that they never opened, that would only allow you to walk through it once. Let the air in, she gasped. That there was no air. Smoke detector downstairs going off night after night at 3 a.m. The nurse below them near death or on meth, motionless on his couch in a dirty undershirt and blasting EDM. He must have thought it was part of the music. It was. The alarm never stopped, and they forever smelled smoke, but nothing further ever happened. She and her husband taking turns to wonder what were those fireworks going off in the closet, just at the very corner of the eye. Did you see them? Did you see them too? Take me to the hospital, or let me out on the roof. But he barred it with his arms, for the door of the body was a permanent door. When the long alarm woke her, and she stumbled into the bathroom, she would see her young mother in the mirror, crying because her teeth hadn't come in as fast as the neighbor babies. Sometimes babies are busy doing other things, the doctor soothed. But now she was fast, a trick rider, the fastest, hanging to the bare lathered back of things by her heels. Come closer, please. I have it. Certain things could only be recognized when they were described in the body of another person, like that lady in the New York Times who had become paranoid about the color red. Paranoid about the color red? What would that even entail? Yet in that place, she was afraid of her own floors. How was that possible? The brain, trained to leap, only to discover its accustomed landing pads were gone. Midair, it repeated the words falling, falling, falling. A step out the door was a step into orbit. Everything so fast. Pattern rode over the earth like a horsehide, rippling sometimes under iridescent flies. Light through the leaves, tail switching. She could only control the flying, the rushing through the universe feeling, if she imagined herself on its back in a printed dress, long braids that she had never had streaming out behind her, the rough texture of a pencil drawing, and feet as slim as trout. Strange snippets singing in her mind. At first she could not place them, and then she remembered. There was a found poem she had been writing called Manifestations of the World's Aliveness in the Works of Laura Ingalls Wilder. It was the culmination of long years of highlighting, for the books were full of sentences that would never be found elsewhere, a phosphorescent signature that no one else seemed to see. Nibblings of fish and devourings of grasshoppers, jerkings down into deep water, rippings of the rag doll, leeches stretching away from your legs, the landscape taking small bites of you to incorporate you into its own flesh. Most of all, she wrote strangely of horses, riding them endlessly into the horizon, or as if the earth itself were one, and its last two lines running up the reins and into your arms. Up the warm, slippery, moving mass of pony. She and the pony were going too fast, but they were going like music. Nothing could happen. Face was one big shining of joy. Nothing could happen to her until the music stopped. Her doll was still her doll. The light shone through them. There seemed to be voices in it. Rode right into the sun as it was going down. Go on in the sun around the world.
The only truth harder to swallow than the fact that none of this is within my control is letting go of the notion that I can do this all on my own. Ooh, I hate it, I hate it. I've spent all my life trying to be the exception to the rule. Well, it turns out I need you to be soft. I need you to be strong. I need you to stay calm now, and I don't know for how long. And I need you to laugh when things get absurd, and I need you to dig down deep and use only your kindest words. And when I get lost, I need you to find me. And when you do, I need you to remind me that you need me too, just like I need you. Oh, you need me too, just like I need you. The only advice harder to follow than it's best to sit here and just wait this out. Oh, is I'm supposed to see a gift in the mess here to keep my faith louder than my doubt. Oh, and I hate it, I hate it. Oh, I'm tired of fighting the tears that come as one more thread's undone. So I'll say it I need you to be soft. I need you to be strong. I need you to stay calm now, and I don't know for how long. And I need you to laugh when things get absurd, and I need you to dig down deep and use only your kindest words. And when I get lost, I need you to find me. And when you do, I need you to remind me that you need me too, just like I need you. Oh, you need me too, just like I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you to be soft. I need you to be strong. I need you to stay calm now, and I don't know for how long. And I need you to laugh when things get absurd, and I need you to dig down deep and use only your kindest words. And when I get lost, I need you to find me. And when you do, I need you to remind me that you need me too, just like I need you. Oh, you need me too, just like I need you. I need you.
Sarah Morris. Thank you. So some microphones in the audience. Hey, are those earrings? Did you make the earrings that you're wearing?
No, these were a gift from my wonderful husband, Jason, and they are rubies. And if you shine a UV flashlight at them, they will turn bright, hot, fluorescent pink. It's so cool.
Really?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
rubies. Wow.
So a lot of rubies are heat treated, but heat treating rubies destroys something called their silk, which is like this natural kind of iridescence that's very beautiful. So if you look at them, that's what like a ruby sometimes really looks like. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Okay. Questions right over there. Yay. Glad she's asking.
Hi. So you have such a talent for coming up with these like very particular but kind of oddly beautiful images. I'm thinking of the like trout, or the feet like slender trout from what you just read. And I was wondering, is there part of your process where you come up with those, or do you just kind of open the door and they're there?
Yeah, I think very visually. So there's a chapter where the sort of your sack is slipping down. The character's husband is, he's like, did you talk about synesthesia in your interview again? And she was like, no. And he was like, it's the fact that you hear a fife when you see the words Revolutionary War, or that you hear ice cubes tinkling when you see the word refrigerator. He's like, I don't think that's synesthesia. I think that's just knowing what words mean. So pretty much like immediately when I read something, I just have like a visual, almost before I even see the meaning, I see something visual. So the feet, slim as trout, I can probably trace it back maybe to Garth Williams's cover of maybe like Shores of Silver Lake, right? And her feet are just a little bit too small as she's riding that horse bareback, and it's probably just what they look like to me. So what I would say, because you can't force that kind of thing, you can't make it up if you don't have it, is that if you do experience, language that way, put that stuff in, like put in that eccentricity. And there's also something to be said for the Mad Lib approach, like the blank of blank. You can put pretty much any 2 words in there and you can come up with something very cool. So if you need a little bit more of like a constrained formal way to stumble on that, if you don't naturally do it, that's available as well. But I think that most people have something like that where it's like they kind of see things as they read. And I think that sort of idiosyncrasy should go in the writing.
Do you teach?
No. Do you think I should?
Yeah. After that explanation, yes. I think that's great. Question right over there.
You have thought through what place it has in your life or doesn't have, but did that extreme illness change your perception of the world that we live in?
It was a little bit of a hilltop ecstasy feeling, and you did feel that you had so many ideas while it was happening and so many glimpses beyond the veil. But it was sort of a thing, too, when you're like, well, if that happens when I eat fried chicken, then maybe it's not from God, and it's just from the fried chicken. So, I don't know. I think that, I was predisposed to having those religious feelings as a kid because I went into those states, and those, to me, that was reality. It was experiencing those ecstasies and those visions and that type of thing. And looking at historical mystics, I think a lot of times it's people like that who had just a little a neurological tweak up there, right? And it doesn't make those things not real. But for me in that state, I was not going to move back toward that, I think, because it's also true that, religion exists in the body of my father. And to think about him at that time was to think about a guy who didn't believe in COVID and didn't want my mom to get the vaccine and that sort of thing. So it was a little bit distant, right? It's there was a movement kind of back to trad stuff, even among people of the more lefty persuasion, people went back to religion, they were thinking about these things again. But that would be hard for me to do right now, I think, with everything that's going on in the world and sort of looking at allegiances that you're well, I don't think that's what that would have been in the past, and being maybe now is not the time to take the veil again, right?
Does your father believe you had COVID?
Yeah, that's the strange part. He sent me this gigantic stuffed aardvark. It was one of the only gifts he's ever given me, after he made it, and he was so worried about me. So that was somehow existing at the same time as he was telling my mom not to get vaccinated, and she had to do it secretly, I don't understand any better than you do, really.
I just noticed you're wearing a really cool ring, too.
Oh my gosh.
Did you make that?
Yeah, no, I didn't make this. This is a Margaret DePata ring, and she was a very, very innovative jewelry designer who worked sort of in the 30s through the 60s, and she did a lot of work with the Bauhaus School, and so she sort of did constructivist design. Very cool. Yeah, look her up because she's sort of forgotten now, but she's amazing.
Beautiful. Up in the balcony.
Oh, hello.
Yay.
Yeah.
Hi. So you have written both poetry and things that you did not call poetry.
Right.
But they have a very poetic voice.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is a separation between the two? Or do you think that the barrier between poetry and prose is something be a bit malleable?
Yeah, it's almost like a toggle you feel inside. You generally know when you're writing a poem, when you're writing an essay, when you're writing a piece of fiction, but other people don't actually maintain the distinction if you write poetry. So people think if a poet writes something, they're only ever writing poetry, which is actually really nice and something I enjoy. So after an event like this, someone might come up to me and be like, I really enjoyed that poem you read. And it's in a way, if it's coming, from the mouth of the poet, maybe that is what it is. I think it's the reason I care a lot less about genre. People are always freaking out and they really are like, oh my God, what is it? What is this thing? And you're just I don't know, man, it's a thing. I made this thing. I enjoyed making this thing. So I don't think you worry about that as much when you work across genre and when you've sort of written in different areas. It's just, you're sort of not my problem. You figure it out.
Who are those people that are freaking out about?
Interviewers, generally.
Yeah.
There's generally interviewers.
Let it be known, I've never asked about genre. Right. Any other questions?
I think we had one there.
Yes, great.
Hi, your writing really reminds me of that modernist poetry idea of like there are no ideas but in things.
Yeah.
What do you make of that when some of those things are like hallucinations from your head and not like the physical things of the world around you?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're seeing is tangible, right? Like, that's the whole thing. I was very influenced by Wallace Stevens and sort of the Elizabeth Bishops of the world. And yeah, they're like, well, I'm going to look at this jug right now, and I'm going to like write about this jug. But they were also talking about metaphysical things. So I just think it's kind of a thing where if I'm looking out at the audience and I'm seeing a big gorilla or I'm seeing a big purple rip in the air, that's there. I mean, it's in my mind. It's not something I could reach out to touch. You can't necessarily see it, but it exists in a certain reality. And I guess that perception should be respected, right? That maybe those are things, those are objects as well.
I have one last question for you, if nobody else does. You've just said that your husband's going to meet you in New Orleans, and you're about to take a driving, a couple weeks of a road trip through the South?
Yes, it's going to be about a 2-week driving tour of the South. I'm not totally sure that the South is like clamoring to hear me reading at their bookstores, but like it seems very, very fun and sort of old school. And maybe also like we should take a documentarian along on the trip who like films from the back seat and like writes about our fights and stuff and like all of the snacks that we get at gas stations. And then after I die, it's like a beautiful movie that wins many awards. This is just kind of what I'm seeing for the future. I'm just like seeing the long tail now. But I'm excited because this sort of thing where you're in airports and you're kind of like, oh, what city am I going to tomorrow? And you don't even know. It feels different than like, oh, there's a guy over there. He's taking me somewhere. I'm going to be okay, you know?
So you grew up in Ohio, but you live in the South now, right?
Yeah.
You live in South Carolina?
Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah.
What is it that you think you don't know yet about the South?
I mean, there's a lot of things about the South that we should probably like be interested in knowing, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it's what it's going to look like in the future, what the path forward is. You were just interviewing Stacey Abrams, is that correct? Right? So you're like, come on, girl, like, like we're in there together. There is, I think, a place or a path forward for Georgia to, you know, like be liberal in sort of ways that are more subterranean, a little bit like subterfugic, and I think that that's something that we're gonna like figure out together.
Patricia, first, thank you for the tarot reading.
You are welcome.
Wow.
What a pleasure.
Very cool. And thank you for everything.
Wasn't
been wonderful
it so cool?
tonight.
After we did that, it was like all the reading was all about the door.
Yeah.
It was literally completely about the door.
The whole thing.
Chills. I know. Chills.
I know.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is wonderful
It was
to have
really
you.
fun.
Thank you.